All right, there's the token minute. So let's begin. This is probably the second or third time now we've done these release webinars of a week or so after the release. We hold these webinars, and it's a chance for users to get an idea on what the new features are, in addition to the blogs and user notes that we the manual, and it gives you a chance to ask some questions, as well, which is always also helpful in case we've forgotten things or didn't clarify things well. We should have time at the end of this. So if you have any other kind of burning questions you've been thinking about in terms of, current features of cyber triage or direction or whatever, let them rip. We will go through those. So basic agenda, we're gonna give an overview of the new features in 3.7. Primarily three things. One is arbitrary file collection, second is score propagation, third is the Mitre ATT&CK framework. There's some other small things that we'll dabble into. We're gonna jump between slides and the app. Different times we've done this webinar, we've either done purely demo or purely slides. This one's a bit more on the slide side, just because honestly some of the features here are so different and require a bit of setup to get them to show each of the edge cases that did a little more slides this time than last time, which was all demo based. And then we'll do open Q&A. Everyone here is muted, but there is a questions section on my screen, the right hand side. Type in any questions you want there. Either some of the cyber triage team will answer them in typing, or I'll get to them as we go along here. There's a set of people who are supporting this behind the scenes as well. All right, so first feature we're going to talk about is the custom file collection. So here's the basic use case and why you're going to care about this feature. Let me get this out of my screen. No, not that. Sorry, I just screwed up my too many windows. Can you guys see that? Probably not. All right, so use case here. So you want to collect some files that the cyber triage collection tool does not, right? So just we're all on the same page, right? The cyber triage has two applications, two programs. One is the UI that you launch and click around with. The second is the collection tool, or collector, as we could be calling it there in the next couple of months. That's what runs on the live running system to pull back files, artifacts, and things from live system or disk image or whatever, right? So it has a set of hard-coded files that it wants to grab, like registry hives, event logs, etc., databases. Every release we add more and more to that to pull it back. But there's always users who say, hey, I want to make sure I'm grabbing this file every time. I want to customize what gets brought back. And this could be either because you have in your environment an application or whatever that has log files that you want to make sure you're grabbing, or there could be some attack that's going on right now that you want to make sure you're grabbing a certain IOC, or in general, like some other trend came out since the cyber triage release, and you want to make sure a certain file is being collected. So you can do that. So the basic flow of this, and we'll jump in the app in a second, is you're going to configure some rule sets, some file collection rule sets. And there's a variety of rule types that you can make. We'll dive into those in a second. Those rule sets are going to be saved so that when you extract the collection tool, there's now going to be a configuration file with those rules in there. Or if you're doing stuff over the network, those rules will get downloaded to the collection tool. The collection tool will look for them. They'll scan the drive, the system, looking for those files that you configured, and will indicate if they were found or not. And then you can go back into the collection details panel in the cyber triage app and see which ones were found or not found, and export them out and do whatever you want with them. So that's kind of the basic flow. Like, you're going to pre-configure some rule sets. The collection tool will then search for them, and then you can find the collection details of the UI. So let's take a look at that. We're gonna get out of the presentation here. Yep. We're gonna jump into the app. So the way you make the rule set, so I've loaded up our demo data here we're gonna use for the today as part of this, but the way you do this is you go to the options panel. There's a new tab up here called File Collection Rules. Sorry, this is a bit small. You first make a set. So let's assume that we're making a set based off of an application that we have. So let's call it app1. So that's our set name. A set can have one or more rules in it. So let's make a rule. Every rule needs a name. So let's call it the app one log file. So the rule can have several different features, if you will, or attributes, depending on what term you want to use. So you can specify a file name. So we can say, hey, maybe the file is called, app1.log is the name of the file. You can specify the folder. If you don't specify the folder, it's going to search every folder in the system looking for that one file. So if you have the folder, you should certainly specify it because it's a lot faster. So let's say that we know that the file is in program data app1. So the path here is program data app1, app1.log. This is a very boring generic path example, but you get the idea, right? So you can specify this. You can specify a max file size and a max file age, meaning it needs to be within the past X days of creation to basically limit what's collected. The reason for that is you can also make a rule to say, hey, you know what? I just want to grab everything in program data /app1. And at that point, you would skip the file name and just put a folder name in, and it would grab everything in that folder. And at that point, you could specify max file size. Say, hey, don't grab a gigabyte file. Don't grab anything that was created, a year ago. Whatever you want. These basically allow you to limit things down if you're doing more of a broad search. You can use wildcards. So you could say, hey, I want a star.log if you want to get all the files that end with .log in that folder. Or you can also use stars and wildcards in the folder names. So you could say, /app1/star/log if there's some version number or something in there. You can say ** if you want to allow an arbitrary number of folders in there. So there's some examples in the user guide for more detailed versions of this. If you guys have rules you're trying to satisfy and you're not sure how to do them, send us an email to support and we'll clarify what that is, and honestly probably update the user guide just to give others the other examples that people are trying to use that we haven't mapped out as part of our example data sets. But anyway, this is the basic context of this. You make that rule. You can make as many rules as you want. You can make as many sets as you want. So this was a set for app1. Maybe you want to make a set for some IOC, some malware, some ransomware thing. You can make as many as you want as part of that. That's basically it. So these are now all configured in for collection from now on. That collections from now on will use these rules. For those of you who are autopsy users, this may hey, this is a lot like interesting file sets. They are same concept, same basic idea that are here. We use the same even UI layout, for this on basically identifying what to collect and bring back. In a future release, we'll turn this into kind of an IOC scanner. So right now, this is just going to bring the files back, but in a future release, this is going to also allow you to flag on them so that if they are found, they will also get flagged for you and will allow you to import in standard IOC scanning formats and things. But for right now, this is all about collection. They don't get scored. They'll just come back as part of that. But in the future, there will be that scoring element in a future release. So that's how you make the rules. Jumping back to the slides, just to kind of show you some examples. The way you're going to see the results when they come back is you're going to go to the collection details item over here on the left-hand side. And there's now this column here on collected or not collected. This is the demo data, so this is kind of actually not a good example to look at here, which is why some of these are in the slides. But in the slides, you'll see examples here of, this is slideshow size. One of the folders, for example, was this user directory. I skipped that step in an example, but if you do want to make a rule that fits into user directories, like user / whatever, you can prefix it with this user dir, and it will kind of replace that with user folders. So if you did a search for user dir app data local Google 42212.exe as a search path, and it wasn't found, it'll still show you that on that collection details panel, just with a not found, but it'll tell you the rule set that it was part of. So in this case, this was a malware rule set. If it was found, it'll give you the collected status. In this case, this is a rule that was done and it was found. You can see that it was 33 megs. You can then export them. In the current version, I believe you export all of them. Actually, but you can also start to selectively export as well. So if you want to, oh, you know what? I lied. This is in the next release. We're working on 3 releases right now. So I lied. In this version that came out, you're still exporting all of them in the version that we have in engineering. You can right click on these or shift select these things to just pick which ones that you actually want to export out of there. So that's a feature that's coming. So that's why I start going off script. This is the problems. All right, so that's this feature in there. So this has been kind of a request for a while. So if this was one of your requests over the years on being able to specify what files you want to collect, let us know if this is meeting all of your use cases on kind of the rules and things that you want to collect as part of that, and let us know. Plug any questions you have on that feature in the Q&A section. All right, so feature number 2 is score propagation. So use case, you are using Cyber Triage, and as you probably all know, Cyber Triage does a lot of things to automatically score files, artifacts, and such. But you can also, click on an item and manually score it as being good, bad, suspicious, whatever. So now, previously, when you scored an item as bad, just that one item was marked as bad, and you see the timeline, all that kind of stuff. Now, as of 3.7, other instances of that same item are now getting scored as bad. So there's two scenarios here. One is hosts that are already in the same incident. I use the word case here. This should be incident. In the same incident that are already there will also get scores. So if you've got 5 hosts in an incident, you start looking at one, you score something as being bad, and it's in 3 of the others, it'll now kind of tell you it's in those 3 and automatically score them as bad so you don't miss them as you move along. In addition, any host that comes in after you score that item as being bad, whether it's in the current incident or future incidents, will also automatically get scored as bad. On the theory that it was bad once, it's going to be bad in the future as well. So this helps you to reduce errors and make sure you flag them as well in the future. So one caveat here, though, is that we're not going to go backwards, right? We're not searching your past cases to tell you that, hey, 2 months ago, this item was also in there. The startup item, this files, whatever, and you missed it. Sorry, we're not going to do that. That we don't want to kind of automatically update scores for you. That could be a feature in the future, right? Just to kind of give you more of a context and aware of FYI to check these things out. We are working in this concept of like a tasking system almost on like, hey, things you may want to follow up with and do. Maybe this will turn into kind of a tasking or an idea for you to say, hey, by the way, you did see the same thing 3 months ago. May not want to open the current case up to do that, but it is there if you want to look at that. So right now, it's all just about in your current incident, and future ones moving forward, we'll flag that. So the way we find other occurrences or instances is using as an exact match of things as possible. And there was some infrastructure changes that we did to make this happen. And basically it comes down to a lot of searching by hash values and focusing on hash values. So if you score something as bad and there's another thing with that same hash value, even if it's a different path, different location, different whatever, it's gonna come up as a suggestion or a flagging for that on the theory that it's the content, the executable, the actions that are the bad thing. It's not the path. So a startup item with the same target hash value that's going to run will also get flagged. But if you have a file with the same path but different hash values, it won't get scored. So we ran this in some of our own kind of internal testing and confusion around people thinking there was problems because there's Firefox browsers on multiple images that we had, but they weren't all propagating. But it's because they were different versions of that. So just to be clear of why, if you're seeing confusion on why it propagated or didn't propagate, check the hash values. Most of the stuff comes down to hash values that are being used for that propagation. So screenshots. So right now, what's going to happen now in 3.7, when you score an item as bad, the recommendation engine pops up and it's changed now. So now the recommendation engine on the top says, here's some related items in the current host. So in this case, we scored a DLL file as being bad. And this is saying, hey, if you thought the DLL was bad, you probably want to flag the process, which is kind of cut off here. But there's this process here that was also using that DLL. That's probably going to be bad for you as well. So by default, it's now getting checked off to basically automatically propagate within the host of related things. And now this new part down the bottom is saying, and hey, by the way, there's other occurrences of that DLL in the current incident. So these two other hosts also have one occurrence of that DLL file. Do you want to flag that as well? And so by default, it's checked off, and you hit OK here. And now, in addition to this one DLL you flagged, you'll now get three other things. You get the process, and on those two hosts, you'll get those marked as bad as well. So let's just say moving forward, or even on that, when you open up that other host, you'll find that, and you'll see it already getting marked as bad. You can see it was marked as bad from this propagation by going to the bottom in the analysis results section, and there'll be this kind of item here that says item has been marked as bad in the past. You'll see it elsewhere, as well, but this tab, for those who haven't looked here, is really kind of all the nitty-gritty details on all the reasons something was actually marked here. So you'll see this item here as was marked bad in the past. The other occurrences tab, which has always been there, also in the lower right-hand corner, which goes back to show you where else something has been seen, has been updated as part of all this to reflect the difference of exact versus partial matches. So it used to just be under other occurrences, it would give you a listing of all the other hosts and incident that had that similar or fuzzy-ish, kind of occurrence of that. It's changed to differentiate exact versus partial. So in this use case now, where we had that DLL file that we were talking about, we flagged before, this is now saying on the exact match tab, it's going to show you that these two hosts, which we already saw in the recommendation engine, also have that same exact SHA-256 hash value. The partial match tab, if you were to go over to that, says a different host, right? So this host number changes. So it was .17, that was .30. We're now at .16. This is saying these are partial matches. So this is saying now that this other host had a file with the same path as this guy. So the program data AMI A NTS.dll was also on this host, but it wasn't exact, right? So it's going to be a different hash value. So you can see here that this is kind of a path match, but not a hash. So this differentiation now is going to be on all these things, and we try to give as much information as possible to tell you the difference and how we're defining an exact match and what a partial fuzzy match is. But just kind of be aware now that there's this difference where exact usually comes down to hash values, right? It's mostly about content and mostly about kind of exact matches, on those things. So that is that feature. If you have questions on that, please plug them in to the Q&A section. That's the one new feature here as well in the 3.7 release. Third major feature we will talk about here today is Mitre ATT&CK. So as of 3.7 now, our automated scoring will now map items back to a Mitre ATT&CK category whenever possible, or a taxonomy, whichever phrase I think is the relevant one here. So you'll see this in a few places. So one is in the results tab, where it'll now map back to which Mitre ATT&CK category it is. The HTML report will show it, and you can export the data in the Mitre ATT&CK Navigator JSON format to then import into the Mitre ATT&CK Navigator if you use that. So let's jump into the app, and I'll show you quickly what that looks like. So if we go up to the bad items on here, we can see, for example, this guy I think is that's a piece of malware, but this one here, which is the hotkeys backup or backdoor, the analysis result tab. You can go into here, and you can now see this is a little wide, very wide, but you can see here that there's now Mitre ATT&CK column here for each of the analysis results. So this one is saying this is the accessibility feature, gives the ID for that, and then there's a link here to view the details, at the Mitre ATT&CK site. So this gives you kind of the rundown on, what this, technique is for that. So we went through all of our analysis results for that, mapped out ones that we think are the correct ones, and mapping out for that. If you ever have questions on this, whatever, and or feel differently for some of these, let us know, or if something that we have that we analyzed that didn't map to it, that we missed it, please let us know, and we will add that that mapping in. Couple comments here as well, that sometimes it's also shown Actually, no, I guess in the current version it's not, but we're showing it over here as well in kind of the summary thing in terms of more higher level. The analysis result is kind of, again, mentioned before, kind of in the weeds, but we'll be putting it here as well on the main tab. If you go to the dashboard, you can go to the report and choose. This is now a new report item here of bad and suspicious items in the Mitre ATT&CK Navigator JSON. So this item will make the JSON file that you can go to the Mitre ATT&CK Navigator and plug it in, and it kind of shows you, where elements are, with that. So you can play around with that if you want that. We'll probably mapping out in some release to give more of, kind of the column view, of Mitre ATT&CK, of taking this data and making it our own kind of display, perhaps at kind of the incident level, so that you can kind of see at the incident, these are the things that are being seen so far. But right now, this was the first step, just to kind of map every item to the Mitre ATT&CK categories, and then we're going to find different ways to kind of bubble that up into UI techniques that are useful, for this, besides just reporting, right? So obviously reporting is a common use case for this, but we're looking into ways that we can help you navigate the data as well with the attack things. So I think that's all we had on that. A couple other things here. So inferred files are now more obvious. So this is a little documented feature, which is probably bad on our side that we didn't document this a little bit more. It's now more obvious, right? So here's a scenario. So a user ran a program or accessed a file and made a data accessed artifact, something, and the registry key or prefetch or something was created by the OS with the path to that file in it. For whatever reason, that file was deleted and no longer in the file system. So the file system kind of lost all concept of it, except for in these registry keys or other log files. And then Cyber Triage comes along, finds that artifact, and sees that path value in there. Now, what Cyber Triage was doing, which is kind of the part that we didn't, honestly document as probably as much as people knew, right, is that we were making an inferred entry in the file browser. So our theory was, hey, at one point there was a file at that path, right, in this part of the file system. It's not there anymore, but you know what? We're gonna kind of overlay, what the actual file system data was with the paths that we saw. So if you are clicking around and doing the file browser view, you're gonna see that at one point there was a file there named, foo.exe or whatever it was. So in the old days, 3.6 and beyond, right, before that, you would see that foo.exe or bad.exe in that folder, and it was simply marked as deleted. So it had a little red check mark next to it. We marked it as deleted on the theory that obviously it wasn't there anymore, but there was a reference to it. But this kind of caused some confusion, right? Because we had a couple of people who were being very diligent with mapping their Cyber Triage results with a disk image, for example, with other forensics tools, the autopsy or something else, and they're saying, hey, Cyber Triage is showing me some file paths that I can't find anywhere else. Like, what's going on here? Where is this coming from? So so this was kind of where we realized that we needed to kind of be a bit more transparent with where this data came from. So now when we do this, we're still doing this. We're still kind of showing you these inferred entries, but we're marking them with a question mark. So there's a question mark in the icon because we're actually not even sure if they existed. This is kind of one of the risks with this, is it because that artifact may have been bad data. So it may not have actually been there. So the question mark now is there to kind of give some indication that we're not sure it's allocated, deleted, whatever it is. And when you click on it in the lower right-hand corner, it does say it was inferred versus actually being a known, allocated or deleted file. So this is what you'll now see, right? So when you now go through the file browser, you can see the files here, the file explorer mode here. You'll see these question marks here to basically say, hey, that we found this folder reference, we found this file. We don't find any more, but there's a reference to them, and the question mark now indicates that that this is inferred state. If you click on this on the lower right-hand corner, there'll be other information here about that it was inferred. So many of you may have never noticed this before. It all depends on how much you're going through. and diving into the kind of folder and file structures of things, but that's what that question mark means. If you do come across that, and again, it's being called out more on the bottom as being inferred, and that's what inferred is. It's basically meaning that we're overlaying that artifact data with the file system data. All right, running through all these things here. Again, we're in the kind of small category of things today. Plug in the questions, and I'll circle back to them in a second here. A couple of the small things. Process column for logons. So we now have a logon column process, in the inbound logons. So the security events 464 can show which process. I think that's right, the right number. I did off the top of my head before. I hope I didn't screw that up. Which process requested the authentication for a logon. We now are showing that. It was always there. We just didn't have it in the UI. This can help you identify what kind of login it was, right? So if it's TeamViewer, if it's something else, you may see that in there. A lot are SVC hosts or DLL hosts, those kinds of things, which is kind of a bit not as useful as a full executable. But if there is, then you'll see that there, just to kind of help you figure out how they come in and what they're doing. We're going to use this information as we go along to help kind of you identify, was this from file sharing, for network logins, is from file sharing, PowerShell, or whatever. But for right now, this is kind of first step was to bubble that information up and then leverage some of that information. Other kind of small tidbit of things here, rounding up into our 30-minute line here. The collection tool now needs information about TLS certificates. So the collection tool used to always ignore the TLS certificate it got from the Cyber Triage server, better for us, right? Now it doesn't. Now in order to kind of prevent man-in-the-middle attacks here, it is always going to do something, with that certificate to verify it's talking to the Cyber Triage server versus some kind of, intercepting proxy or whatever. So when you run Cyber Triage collection tool now, if you're running it directly, if you're just doing live automatic or some of those kinds of things, or saving it to a file, no change. This is really just if you are launching it yourself, either from an EDR or you do live manual or whatever. If you're running the tool and having it reach back to the server, you need to either give it the fingerprint of the unique server certificate. So as of 3.7, every installation of Cyber Triage is making its own self-signed certificate. And the fingerprint, the SHA-256 hash value of that certificate needs to be given to the collection tool so that when it receives a certificate as part of the TLS handshake, it knows that it's getting the right certificate from the server. There's you can do a short version of it, so you don't have to put in the whole long SHA-256 value, but it needs some indication on like what is the legit certificate for that. Or you can say, ignore the certificate. I don't care about worrying about man-in-the-middle attacks for that, and you can say just ignore it. So again, this is only if you are launching it yourself with an EDR or something else. If you're using live automatic, this automatically happens. But you're now going to run it with something like Cyber Triage CLI -- server, give it the server name, and then there's now this -- cert hash, where either you give it a short version of the fingerprint or cert hash, no hash, to basically ignore that. If you want this approach, which you should, you need to get that hash value. You can get that from the options panel. So if you go to the options panel, certificate info, I think, tab now, which will give you all the information about your unique self-signed certificate to plug in there. If you have an internal proxy that's doing TLS intercept, you can also configure it to know that certificate so that it verifies that, since that's what you're going to get if there is a TLS intercept proxy in your environment, not just going outbound, but within your environment. So that's that as well. All right, so that's kind of the rundown of the new stuff in 3.7. Again, we'll get to the Q&A here, but I want to kind of try to keep this kind of nice and tight and short here. For folks where we appreciate you jumping on and learning more about this and giving us some feedback and thoughts with this. So what's coming up there. So I want to share everything on here. So there's a couple themes that we're working on. I already kind of spilled the beans on some of the smaller things that I thought were going to be in the version that I had. 3.8 is coming out in August, so a pretty tight turnaround on this one. 3.7 actually was hanging out for quite a while, honestly, since our 3.6. But 3.8 is going to be a tight turnaround here. Two major themes. One is some changes to malware scanning. Notably, you're going to be able to enter credit card to buy some more malware scans. So sometimes people run out, they've got a whole bunch of incidents in 1 week and they need a whole bunch for that 1 week. With 3.8, you'll be able to kind of enter credit card and buy, a 30-day kind of boost pack that will allow you to, get more and, to get you through that big incident or whatever you have for that. We're also introducing a concept called Flex. The exact names are being ironed out here, but these are our current names for these. They may change when they actually come out. But the idea of the Flex is basically to make sure you can get through your current host if you run out of scans, to give you some buffer to basically allow you to kind of dip into a pool of scans to make sure you can get through those hosts. We want to minimize how many times you guys are trying to get through a host, run out, and you can't finish your investigation, right? So there's this kind of flex pool to allow you to get through that host and finish what you need to do and kind of get some questions on intrusions and such. So that's one theme. Theme 2 is autopsy integration. So we're working on making it so that you can export data out of Cyber Triage, or at least convert data in Cyber Triage and be able to open it up in Autopsy to leverage things like full text search or the timeline feature in Autopsy or whatever you want to do in Autopsy. So this has been kind of a common request. So that linkage is being created as part of 3.8, and there's some Autopsy and Cyber Triage changes to make that happen. We're also releasing or building a malware scanning module for Autopsy that can leverage the Cyber Triage cloud infrastructure to scan disk images and such for malware. So this is useful for forensics people who don't do intrusions necessarily, but do want to know if there is malware on that system or not. So those are things that are coming out in August as part of 3.8. 3.9 is going to be October. One of the big things there is working on incident level analytics. So we're redoing the incident dashboard, bringing in things like incident level search, incident level timeline, all these kind of bigger picture things that people have been asking about. Basically, yeah, looking at one host is great, but I really want you to look at everything to figure out kind of what's going on and make the connections between all these things. So that's kind of what's in 3.7, what's coming up, and plug in the questions you have. I'll go through the ones that I can see here for this, and but any questions you have after this, send to support@cybertriage.com. They'll get wired to either customer success people if they're feature requests, or they'll answer tech questions there, whatever. That's kind of the main place to go to make sure we address all the questions that you have. So let's go through some of the questions here. So it's a question here on the propagation feature. It's a question on turning off the propagation of once you flag something as being bad, does it always get sent around, or how can you turn it off? So it's a good question that I kind of glossed over. I don't know if I have this on my set, but I don't have a good data set here to do this on. But if you do right click on something that gets scored because it was a propagation, actually know what you know it. Sorry, I totally was that. So if something gets marked as bad from a past host, you can click add or score item as good, and then it will then prompt you to basically say, hey, by the way, this item was marked as bad because a past host marked it as bad. What do you now want to do with it now, since you now think it's good? And it will basically verify that you want to remove it from this kind of propagation list. So once you mark it as good, to basically say, hey, you know what, this wasn't actually bad, it will remove it from that. There is in the options panel, where is it? The past hosts column, which is empty on this setup, but this is basically will show the list of things that aren't getting propagated because you said, hey, you know what, it's still marked as bad in those past things, but don't keep on propagating it moving forward. So that's what you should do if you do get some kind of false positives in there for whatever reason. You know, just start marking it as good, and then once you mark it as good, then it will you know, kind of add to this list. On that theme, kind of jumping around here, but we've been talking to some customers, you know, about this idea of marking things as good. Some people don't like the concept of marking items as good. They want to kind of say, hey, it's not bad or suspicious, but I'm not willing to commit to the idea of saying it's good. I just want to say it's not suspicious or not bad. So there's been this discussion on this idea of like, is this the right phrasing that we're doing of scoring an item as good versus almost more of like marking it as not suspicious, or kind of removing the rules that call it suspicious or bad. So if you have thoughts on that, I would love to hear them as well. Either in the kind of the QA chat, you know, kind of stuff here as well, you know, or just, you know, just kind of into support or to customer success or whatever, you know, on this. But love to hear your thoughts on kind of this idea of, you know, markings as good versus just kind of not suspicious. Be interesting. All right, other questions here. Question about Linux, which is an interesting timing question. We're also working on Linux right now as we speak. This has been a long-term request as well. So we have started to kick off an effort on a Linux-based collection tool, or the collection tool to run on Linux and grab Linux things. And our goal is end of year, we have the Linux version that's collecting and scoring Linux data on there. So again, this is where we've been hearing the requests for a while, so we're working on that. If you have any comments or thoughts on specific versions of Linux and platform, or you know, distributions that you care about a lot, let us know, and we can make sure we're covering that and rack and stacking those in our priority list if you have that kind of overall feedback. Question here about integrations and ones that we are working on there, or what was the question on? Yeah, I guess asking about integration. So in general, this is a theme that we are also working on. We have a bunch of requests that we've gotten to make those integrations. We're trying to work our way through those, and our goal is to either make, you know, kind of a module that does the integration that's possible, or at least be able to better kind of document how to do it if that's not possible. So I do know right now we are working on Windows Defender integrations. We should have kind of documentation on that somewhat soon. Other ones in the queue for like EDRs are CrowdStrike and SentinelOne are also pretty high up in the queue for that. Just full disclosure, we have someone else working on kind of ticketing systems as well, you know, for integrations there to put data back into. So we have someone right now working with DFI Iris to kind of plug data back into a ticket, and we're looking at other ticketing systems as well to kind of plug data back into for the SOC use cases. So if these are of interest to you, that I didn't rattle off, again, send a message to support or customer success, and we can make sure that those get mapped up for you as well. That we prioritize based off of number of requests that we're getting for things to make sure we're delivering the most important things. So any feedback you can provide on that is of interest as well. So if there's other questions, plug them in, and I can get to those as well. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Happy to have you here, and hopefully this was useful for you to learn about some of the newer things that were added in 3.7. And again, let us know any other questions or requests that you have. And otherwise, I will see you at a future webinar, I guess. So, thanks.